Everybody, it's me, Keto Queen YYC, and I have a special guest here today. Her name is Samantha Hart. She is currently in Ottawa. She is amazing. She's been my friend for a while, and she is a nutrition specialist, a online fitness coach, a hormone specialist. She's certified in a bunch of things. I'm going to get her to formally introduce herself, and she's here today to tell us all about hormones and your wellness, tell us about her journey. I'm going to tell you about my journey. We've both gone through some similar kind of things in terms of hormone changes. A lot of us are going through some hormone changes, and on your wellness journey, you might have some roadblocks if you aren't careful. So we're here to teach you all of the things you need to know, hacks, and some great advice on when to get checked and what to do to make sure you are your healthiest when you are crushing your goals. So Sam, take it away and introduce yourself. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thanks so much for having me. This is freaking awesome. I know we've been planning this for like weeks, and with schedules, it's just been really nuts. So I'm super stoked to be here and provide you guys with as much value as possible so that you have some tips and tricks in order to get your health in line. Because like you said, we both have some crazy stories and we want people to learn from them. The whole point of this, value, impact over income always, right? So in case you don't know me, I am a strength and conditioning coach. I'm an online personal trainer. I do nutrition. I specialize in hormones. And most but not least, I really try to make things as accessible as possible to people, break down the science, break down barriers, and help you to improve your life in that kind of capacity. So my journey is a little bit different than ElleAura's. I think, mine comes from a background of improper eating. And I did it to myself with a genetic predisposition to hypothyroidism. So like in my case, I was under eating and overtraining. What that means is that I wasn't eating enough calories and I was training way too much for what my body was doing. I think I was eating around 1,100 calories a day and training 6 days a week, intense parkour, weightlifting, things like that. And so when I was 19, I decided to bodybuild and I hired a coach. This coach, she did not do what we would consider safe in the industry that I know now. Do not triple your calories overnight. Bottom line, you should be reverse dieted. So what ended up happening is I got into contest prep mode and my body started revolting. And what that means is that I started pounding on fat whenever I should have been leaning out. And fast forward 8 years later, I have a damaged metabolism. I don't metabolize carbs as well. And I have hypothyroidism. So this came at a big cost, my mistakes. Even though I'm a professional, even though I've been lean, I've been overweight, I've had a 6-pack, I'm kind of just here right now, focusing on balancing it all out. So in March of 2021, I was diagnosed with clinical hypothyroidism. I have a genetic predisposition to it. However, it is not Hashimoto's. And I was originally put on levothyroxine, which is Synthroid. Okay. There's nothing wrong with hormone replacement therapy. There's nothing wrong with taking medications to stimulate your hormones. However, I decided I wanted to do a more natural approach since it was a very low dose. And so I decided to take matters into my own hands. And what ended up happening was a long journey studying hormones, gut health, women's health. And basically, we just ended up being able to get normal blood work within 10 weeks. So I'm going to share those tips and tricks with you today.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. My story is a little bit similar to yours. So what happened to me, and it's happened to so little calories, too much exercise, stressed our bodies out, and we're not taking care of ourselves because we're trying to get to a certain weight. And lack of knowledge, it was quite the trend. There was even the HCG diet back in the day, 500 calories.
Oh, don't remind me.
800 calories. I think I was usually doing between 800 and 1100, 1200 calories, which is starvation for your body. You're not getting enough calories, macronutrients, fat to support your hormones. And your hormones just go and crash and burn. And me personally, what happened, I was in nursing school. I was eating McDonald's. I was doing night shifts. And I had high thyroid before I went low. But I didn't gain any weight because my thyroid was on overdrive. My metabolism was high. And all of a sudden, boom, overnight, it felt like it was, I think in the span of maybe 3 months, I gained 50 pounds and felt like a zombie. And I was diagnosed with Hashimoto's. So that's an autoimmune thyroid disease. And predisposition, like you said, honestly, anybody can develop a hormone issue, especially if we are stressing our body out by under eating, working out too crazy. So I personally had to learn a lot about that, and I'm so grateful for the changes and the knowledge that I now have. And I've learned a lot from Samm as well. But your health is your wealth, right? We're not a number on the scale, guys. Like, make sure you're doing stuff safe and slow. Don't be in a race. If you know, be like, oh my gosh, I'm just gonna like not eat very much. I'm going to eat 1 meal a day, 500 calories, and I'll lose all this weight. But you are permanently damaging your body. Well, you can fix it. You can fix your hormones. You can fix your metabolism. But let's just not go there and like cause all that stress to our body, and let's just do things properly. So yeah, thanks for sharing that, Samm.
I'm laughing because it's like a let's not and say we did. I'm like, oh God, this is like my background, right? 101, orthorexia, 1,200 calories or less. Like, oh,
I know.
Just don't do it. Learn from us. Don't do it.
Yeah, seriously, guys, it's not worth it. It's not worth it. But Samm has healed her thyroid. I have, in a sense as well, but mine's autoimmune, so it's a little bit different. So I'm still on thyroid replacement, but everything Samm's going to tell us right now is going to help us know when we might have symptoms of low thyroid. That's really important. Also, making sure you get, I recommend annual blood work checkups, especially women. Men get thyroid problems too, but a lot of people, they're exhausted, they're gaining weight, they're losing hair, their sex drive is low, they're unable to lose weight or any one of those symptoms. And they're like, what's wrong? But they don't get the blood test.
Exactly. Oh my God, right? And they just think, oh, what's wrong with me? Nothing works for me. You just haven't identified what's wrong.
Yeah, so do your checkups, guys. Don't be scared. It's so important. And do it every single year, and do it more regular if you feel like you've made a change or you're not feeling well. Because it's like, don't try and like run against the current. You want to figure out what's going on with you so you can meet your goals a little easier. So
100%. I mean, like in my case, I was like, I'm a trainer. I know all this stuff. What is going on in my body? I can't figure this out. I put it off for 8 months before I marched into my doctor's office and I'm like, you need to test me for thyroid. And lo and behold, it was thyroid. Like, don't do what we did.
Like, sometimes, guys, your range for thyroid, doctors will test your thyroid stimulating hormone, but there's also your T3 and your T4. So there's 3 tests. Some doctors won't do all 3. If you feel unwell and your doctor says you're fine, go to a naturopathic doctor. Me and Samm, we aren't doctors. I'm a nurse. She's a specialist. We aren't doctors, but do your research. Always get more opinions. Don't just give up, because some doctors will be like, oh, you're fine. But what's your baseline? What's your normal? Do you have a trend? Do you know what your thyroid levels were years ago? If you don't have that trend, maybe they are slowly going less. Maybe that doctor isn't really the best at thyroid. A lot of them aren't. No offense. I love naturopathic doctors. They're amazing. You guys might have benefits. If you don't, super worth it. Your health is your wealth. 100,000,000,000%.
Yeah, even just to have them run the full hormone panels, it's worth the cost, in my opinion. Like if they run a Dutch test. If you guys don't know what that is, it's like the king shit of all hormone tests. Like, I haven't had one done yet, but I'm looking at having it done. I just found a naturopath in the city, so that's always exciting.
Yeah, and to know what your hormones are at, because there's also estrogen, progesterone. A lot of people have imbalances, and there's a lot that we're maybe doing in terms of diet and exercise, sleep, stress, all of those things that can put up our stress hormones and change our estrogen, progesterone. We want to just be nice and peaceful, happy, eating well, feeling good. So Samm, if you could give us some tips on stuff that's good for your hormones in terms of diet, exercise, and all that goodness, that would be so amazing.
So we're basically going to break this down into 3 sections. First, I want to talk about what may be happening, like symptoms that you may have a hormone situation on your hands. The second is what can you actually do in terms of lifestyle factors to help yourself? And the third is kind of putting it all together for you into like the top 8 tips I would give you. All right. So let's get this show on the road. The first things that I would recommend you have your physician look into if you have any of these are kind of like the big signs that you may have a hormone imbalance. Your body may not be responding to training and nutrition manipulation. So like whenever you get into that funk of like, oh, I can't make anything work. I'm eating so little, I'm training so much, my body just keeps gaining weight, I don't know what's wrong, and you're in that perpetual cycle of nothing works. This is probably the biggest sign that I see when people come to me. The second thing is having a large hormone belly. A hormone belly kind of could look like a pregnant belly or like a man's really big beer belly. And what that can be indicative of is a gut that's under functioning. It can be high cortisol levels. It can be basically, I call it like an angry belly. So something is angering it and you have to figure it out what it is. Other things can be chills, severe fatigue, brittle hair and nails. Is your hair falling out in clumps? Is it super dry all of a sudden? Other symptoms can be dry skin to the point of eczema, low sex drive, like ElleAura said. We've got difficulty falling asleep and difficulty staying asleep. Your sleep is something that you should be really looking into. Also, for women, it can be indicated by all of a sudden really heavy menses, lack thereof, or very sporadic menses. So if you have any of these things and you're kind of hemming and hawing right now, my advice is call up your physician and have a full blood panel done. The steps you should take in order to regulate your hormones and overall wellness. The first thing is that we need to have a look at your diet. When we face an imbalance, an angry gut, and overall eating patterns, we need to identify foods that are potentially intolerant or inflammatory to the body. Inflammation is a stress response. So if we're eating inflammatory foods, we are adding stress to our system. And this looks different for every single person. Either you're working with a nutrition coach, hormone specialist, an RD, a dietitian, or a naturopath, you would go on some form of an elimination diet. What this is, it's a very short-term solution in order to help identify what foods are bothering you. So usually for about a week or 2, you're going to cut everything out that could be potentially inflammatory. That can look like gluten, dairy, red meats, soy, canola, corn, peanuts, whatever is particular to that imbalance. Each imbalance is different. Like ElleAura said, there's many different hormones. Depending on what the imbalance is, these are things that you would look at removing. And then slowly but surely, under guidance of one of these people, you're going to introduce foods back in and identify what you find as intolerant or inflammatory. It can be a mild intolerance, or sometimes it can be a severe intolerance. I know that whenever I was doing mine, basically dairy is like a huge no for me. I looked pregnant within an hour of eating. Did not look very pleasant. Loose shirts were us that week. So we definitely also want to be adding in gut-friendly foods. So we want to be looking at adding things with probiotics, such as kimchi, sauerkraut, fermented yogurts, and kefir, things along those lines. Or you can just take a probiotic supplement if you don't want to, or do not like the flavor of fermented foods. If you like kombucha, good news, it has live probiotics. So that's kind of there. The other thing is that you should not be cutting macronutrient groups completely. You want to be focusing on an unprocessed diet of whole foods. What that means is that you want to eat foods in their most natural state, not necessarily out of a package, and cook them yourself as much as possible. Being realistic, it's not going to be 100% of the time, but as much as possible, you want to be focusing on those whole foods.
Back in the day, I used to be like you with dairy. So dairy and gluten, I used to get bloated. I'd have stomach pain. But guys, sometimes we have intolerances and we don't have these extreme symptoms. Sometimes things are happening on a micro level and you don't see it. You're not having eczema. You're not feeling like, oh my gosh, my belly's so sore. But still, if you aren't feeling your best and you're feeling tired or you're having hormone issues, do look into your diet. It is so important. Me personally, what I did notice is I was extremely sensitive to gluten to the point where I would have a belly ache for days. I talked to my doctor. They did a blood test for celiac. I was negative. They said, do you want to do a biopsy? I said no, because that made no sense to me. It was going to be me having gluten for 6 weeks. So what I did instead, like Sam said, I healed my gut. I took probiotics. I took ketones and other supplements, bone broths. I cut out the gluten. I did low carb dieting, which was really nice for my gut. My gut had a rest, healed up, and I felt way better to the point where I actually could eat gluten again, which is kind of weird. But like I said, on a micro level, things are still probably hurting you. You can't just ignore it. So, oh, my gut's better. My skin is a mess right now because I was off of the don't do much gluten and dairy train, and I was eating very dirty for the last 2 weeks. That's where I notice it. Just a little bit of spots on my face. I'm not having the belly pain anymore. But because I had that sensitivity in the past, just because I healed my gut doesn't mean just go balls to the walls and eat all those things your body's sensitive to.
For sure.
Be very mindful and strategic. So what I'm going to do in a few weeks is I'm going to probably go gluten-free again, which to me is terrifying. You guys know I'm keto. I'm not strict keto. I'm not doing gluten-free life like a lot of strict keto people are, but gluten is extremely inflammatory. Dairy is extremely inflammatory for most people. We are the only mammals that have so much dairy. And a lot of people, when they go keto, they increase their dairy to crazy levels, which, guys, is not what we're supposed to do. Get your fats from other things that are healthy and good for your gut and good for your hormones, like avocados. And like she said, peanuts aren't the best. Peanuts are kind of the worst nut, unfortunately. So stick to maybe some almonds and coconut oil and those healthy fats instead, guys. Super important. Even like I said, if you're not having gut symptoms and you're having any, feeling tired or hormone issues, just still look at your diet because there's probably something going on there.
I actually can eat gluten now too. After healing myself, I can have it in small quantities as well. Let's also have a talk. While we're on the topic of food, I also want to talk to you about alcohol. Okay. Alcohol with a hormone imbalance is a huge no-no. Why? Well, when alcohol is consumed, it causes the liver to become congested. If the liver is congested, its ability to convert thyroid hormones, among others, is limited. And as a result, excess hormones get stuck in the liver, basically. So if your liver is not able to detoxify, because that's what the liver does, if it's not really able to get rid of the excess hormones, it'll recirculate in your blood system. And that gives you an excess of hormones. So this can be caused by drinking, because if the liver is congested, you can't detoxify effectively. Doesn't mean you can't drink for forever, but while you're balancing things out, guys, it does seem extreme sometimes. But these things are all in place for a reason.
That's one thing I noticed too for myself is I am not, like, even one glass of wine, the next day, you're not functioning at the same level as you would be. A lot of people do say it can kick you out of ketosis, even if you're drinking low carb booze and wine. There's a low carb, but some people get carried away and have a few of those glasses and it adds up. So guys, moderation is super important. Maybe ease off on that and you will feel better. And there is other implications of having too much or too regular alcohol consumption. I know they said, oh, a glass of wine a day is so good for you, but there is research saying, oh, those benefits that you get from the wine, you'd have to drink like gallons of wine, which is not actually something people can do. So it's kind of a little bit misconstrued. You can get those nutrients and antioxidants from other things like berries. So
oh, for sure. Like if you ever have like a greens or red supplement, the red supplement does have a ton of resveratrol, which is that thing that the red wine gives you. You can actually supplement resveratrol too if you're like gung-ho and determined to get it. So that is an option. The next thing, guys, I want us to look at is our sleep patterns. I know I mentioned it at the beginning, and many of us actually don't know what it means to actually feel good and thrive. Our normal is fine. I'm fine. I'm okay. Oh, I'm just tired. That's not a good normal, if you ask me. Most people do not know what it means to actually feel really good and to thrive. And so a big factor of that is sleep. The most important sleep actually occurs before midnight because that is some of our most healing sleep time. The other thing that you need to be aware of is aiming of REM cycles. So a REM cycle is rapid eye movement, and this occurs every 90 minutes. And so when you get woken up sometimes in the middle of a REM cycle, you can feel so groggy and exhausted. So when you're going to bed, I would recommend you would set your alarm for 90-minute cycles. So that would look like either 6 hours, 7.5, or 9 hours of sleep. And from here, you're going to find a huge benefit in your sleep patterns. You also need your body to be able to clear toxins effectively. So when you are asleep, this is your body's time to repair itself. It's busy while you're snoozing. It's busy repairing muscles, helping repair tissues, fix up your joints, solidify your bones, and help your hormones. So make sure that you are getting effective sleep because it has a deep impact.
And if you get more sleep before midnight, you're just going to feel better the next day. And fun fact, guys, the better sleep you have, it's better for weight loss too, and fat loss specifically, because that's when your body's fat burning hormones are at work and you're allowing them to work properly. That's why in the morning, if you step on the scale after sleeping, sometimes you notice a little bit of a change there with your fat dropping. So guys, that's a great incentive to getting some sleep. 7 to 9 hours is what most healthy adults need per night. But like she said, it's before midnight. If I sleep 7 hours after midnight, I feel completely different. And guys, it's hot as heck these days. So sometimes you have to account for that kind of thing. Go to bed earlier, make sure you have time to settle in. Because if it's taking you a while to fall asleep, you might not end up getting that deep sleep that you need for as much
Exactly. I want to talk about something called cortisol reversal that I find a lot of people have, but don't know that they have. So if you're not aware, cortisol is your main stress hormone. It's your survival hormone, if you will, the fight or flight response. When cortisol is stimulated, blood leaches from your body, goes to your limbs and your heart, and is ready for anything. If we need to fight, flight, climb a tree, whatever it is to get out of danger, because that's what we would have done on the savannah. So this is our survival instinct coming in. When our cortisol is too high, there's many things that can occur. Being chronically stressed out makes our cortisol levels go very high. And when we're under chronic stress, it adds to that evil belly fat that we all want to reduce. So what we need to do is make sure that we are modifying or mitigating our stress in better ways. When our stress is too high, our cortisol goes high, and basically we're not going to be digesting things effectively, which adds onto the belly fat. And it can have an impact on our sleep as well, which is what I was coming to. There's something called cortisol reversal. Have you ever gone to bed absolutely wired for sound? And when you wake up, you're absolutely exhausted? This is something that can be indicative, if it's a common occurrence, of cortisol reversal. Your cortisol should be highest in the morning, meaning you have the most energy, you bounce out of bed, and it should be the lowest at night when melatonin is highest. And if you find yourself getting a second wind right before bed, this tells me that you might be under some chronic stress.
we can be stressing our body not only with the typical things like life and relationships and money and all those things, but even just by exercising too hard or eating too little or doing extreme fasting. You really got to take care of yourself and do things strategically. It's not a one size fits all. So there is studies about like extreme marathon runners. Like you think, oh wow, that person looks so limber and lean, but they're putting a lot of stress on their body, their joints, their cardiovascular system. They're having increased levels of cortisol and their bodies are more stressed. Sometimes they look really fit and they might have a six-pack, but inside they might have a high level of cortisol. So what I've been more into lately is yoga, Pilates, those kind of relaxing-ish strength building, but at the same time kind of working on mindset workouts versus running long distances. I did hear a study that doing something like sprinting and walking is better than running long distances, or strength training or using your own body's weight. I bet you Samantha probably has a lot to tell you about that because that's her specialty. She's a fitness guru and knows everything. So
that's coming in about 2. That's coming in 2 points. You're already on the ball. And in case you guys didn't know, we didn't discuss this beforehand. This is totally off the cuff, and this is awesome. This creates the best banter, in my opinion. So, so the other factor that we're discussing, of course, is stress. So being that it's a huge factor, you need to learn to relax yourself. You're not going to end up like a little Buddha, sitting down, crossing your legs, being all peaceful and zen and om overnight, okay? Stress factors in your life are things that you need to learn to simplify. So that can look like saying no whenever you actually want to say no. That can mean relieving one of your extracurricular activities. That can mean saying no to a volunteer position. The bottom line is that you don't need to be a superhuman all of the time. And especially with balancing hormones, you need to be very particular how you are spending your energy, who you're spending it with, and the situations that you're putting yourself in. Yes, there are going to be things outside of your control. However, how you react to those things is going to be king. And so I would look at your bedtime routine and set a sleep and wake period and keep it even on weekends, okay? I know, easier said than done. You want to stay up till 2 a.m. on a Friday and wake up at noon. That's going to do you more damage than good. I would look at setting up a morning routine and an evening routine. A typical morning routine, maybe 5 to 10 minutes. While drinking our coffee or having our greens in the morning, we will typically have a gratitude journal, write out 5 things we're grateful for, setting your mind into a state of gratitude and abundance. The next step would be affirmations, writing things about yourself that you see or want to become true. Your brain will respond whenever you physically write it out. It creates new neural pathways whenever you physically write it. That's why it's better than just thinking about it. Physically write it out. The next thing would be maybe a 3 to 5 minute meditation. And if you want, you can add some stretching. In the evening, I would consider a 15 to 20 minute bedtime routine. That can look like brushing your teeth, washing your face, doing a facial, whatever it is, and calming yourself down. You can put on some calming music. You can make sure that the lights are quite dim because our bodies respond to bright light. If there's bright light coming at you, that melatonin is going to go less and less. So we want to bring the lights down, create a calm and peaceful environment, maybe a dim light, and read a book for 20 minutes. You can meditate, things along these lines that you just want to calm yourselves down. So in the morning, it's about amping yourself up and being in a positive and abundant mindset. And when it's time for bed, it's time to calm down, put a close to the day, and be done with the day.
Yeah, that's super powerful. And I need to definitely start journaling because it's really, really important. So gratitude is everything for sure. And if you're constantly stressed or feeling negative, that affects your hormones like crazy, right? Like we think, oh, that's so weird. Like, how can that affect it? But it's so, so true. And you were bringing up coffee. And I want to say, guys, like some of you guys might not be feeling tired because you're drinking way too much coffee, caffeine, stimulants, whatever. Reel that in. Look at what you're intaking so you can properly assess like how you're actually feeling, because you want to thrive. You don't want to just be a zombie mombi and then chugging coffee all day and then thinking, oh yeah, I feel like kind of buzzed, kind of anxious, kind of awake and not tired. But maybe you're just masking a thyroid problem, or there's other things that can happen in your health that can cause you to feel tired, like low iron or different health issues. So if you're drinking a ton of coffee, look at that for sure. And that's not healthy long-term, and you're probably hiding some symptoms.
Hi, my name is Sam, and I'm a coffee addict. I'm a recovering coffee addict. So we're also, that's in here. So that's awesome. This girl, super knowledgeable. God, I love you. So the sixth one is the topic you've all been waiting for: exercise. In moderate amounts, exercise can be very beneficial, but there is such a thing as too much, and there is such a thing as too little. So when we're looking in terms of hormones and building a proper and functioning musculoskeletal system, hormonal system, happy joints, strong bones, it's no mystery that, of course, this is a huge stress reliever. When we train effectively, we are releasing endorphins, serotonin, dopamine, etc. And this can actually activate our autonomic nervous system, which is in control of stress and relaxation. So when you do exercise regularly, you can relieve a ton of stress from your body. However, there is such a thing as too much. And what that might look like is feeling symptoms of fatigue when you weren't having them. Sore joints. Sore joints is not normal when you're training. You shouldn't be having sore joints. A willpower to do nothing. Like all of a sudden you're going from gung-ho to like, oh, I don't want to do it anymore. Fatigue, overstress, and hormone imbalance is all indicative of overtraining. And when we're trying to balance them out, you shouldn't be doing balls to the wall, high intensity interval training. Like true HIIT, you should not be doing. Plyometric training, you should probably not be doing at the moment. You can come back to them when you're balanced out. However, for now, moderate activity is king.
A lot of people think, yep, just work out hard. There's a thing called exercise bulimia. Some people just think, oh yeah, I'll eat this many calories and I'll just burn so many calories and I'll be so fit. But it doesn't really work that way. It's a little more complicated. You want to keep those hormones safe, fam. Don't waste your time.
Exactly. I 100% agree. And even if you look at bodybuilders and stuff, they're not always going balls to the wall, guys. They take lots of rest. The heavier they lift, if you've ever seen a power lifter training, they'll pick up something 3 times and go rest for 5 minutes. There's a reason behind that. Your body has a finite amount of adenosine triphosphate, which is the magic little chemical that helps your muscles flex. Okay, it's in charge of contracting your muscles. And so if you're going balls to the wall, you're going to crap that out, and it takes a long time to regenerate. So depending on your training style, there's a way to do it and a way not to do it. My best advice is to reach out to a professional to help you with that. I'm a professional and I still have a coach. Why? Because I can't look at myself objectively the same way that they can. If I want to level up, I reach out. The next thing I want to talk about is obesity and excess fat and its potential to actually affect your hormones. And this is kind of a taboo topic in a society where we're starting to be very body positive. We're starting to really embrace everybody at every size. Please understand, I am not fat shaming when I say these things. I'm talking purely from a health standpoint. When we have excess body fat to the point of obesity, this has the potential to cause something called aromatase uptake. And it's upregulated due to inflammation, insulin resistance, increased cortisol, xenoestrogens, which we're going to talk about, and mold toxicity. Bottom line, what this means is it can actually increase your chances to have circulating estrogen in the body. Xenoestrogens as well, which are environmental toxins, I'll talk about in a second, have the chance to actually store themselves in your fat cells. And so by getting a little bit larger than we should, we can actually store more toxins into our body. And so when we start losing the weight, it's beneficial because we start decreasing inflammation and stress on the body and its joints. But there is the potential as well that toxins can be released from the extra fat cells that we've created. So it's best to just keep a moderate body size as much as possible, okay? Eat well, move your body, sleep, and you should be okay. When it comes to caffeine, as 𝑻𝒉𝒆 said, we should be consuming this moderately. A general rule of thumb is in order to help us decrease the effects of caffeine on our system, because it does increase our stressors, right? Our adrenals are like, oh, hey, we're stimulated, woohoo, right? If you have a high cortisol response, if you increase your adrenals, you might make the situation worse. So what my recommendation would be is to take maybe 1 to 2 cups of coffee in the morning before 11 o'clock. Caffeine can stay in your system up to 8 hours or more. So if you're trying to go to bed at 9, 10, 11 o'clock at night, you shouldn't be really having it since noon. Even if you don't feel like it's there, it's still affecting your hormones. Your heart rate can race. You will still feel maybe a little anxious. Your adrenals still get affected. So that's a big factor that you do need to consider, just like alcohol. I'm really sorry to be the bad news bears bringer, but that's the reality.
Some people are definitely just used to drinking coffee like water, and it is not water, fam. You need to drink your water. Super important for your health, or you're going to be too acidic and yucky in your body. So drink your water, look into how you're feeling, and if you're tired, take some vitamins. If you're not taking vitamins, I'm going to be mad. But anyways, take vitamins.
I'm going to be mad, she says.
Yeah. Take vitamins, eat healthy, get all your great like veg and stuff, and take other healthy supplements that are going to give you like antioxidants. I love ketones. And don't just stimulate. Like if you're chugging coffee and you're feeling tired like that, you need to do some investigation and do some changes for sure. Like, sorry to be bad news as well. I love coffee. I actually drink decaf because I don't need the caffeine, and I just love coffee.
Before I started taking my own hormones into control, I was up to 6 to 8 cups of coffee a day just to function as an online coach, because it's a lot of mental power.
Wow, that's a lot.
And then when I started taking control back, I don't even have coffee most days now because I just bounce out of bed and I've got a ton of energy. And I'm like, whoa, this is how it's supposed to feel? Wow.
Yeah, like you said, there's a difference between thriving in life and just kind of dragging yourself out of bed and existing and zombie stimulating, just chugging your coffee and just getting by and repeat. That's not how we're supposed to live. We're supposed to live our best lives, eat good, feel good, right?
The last thing I wanted to talk about, because I know this is a big topic in my client group, is something called endocrine disruptors. And this is a very common topic that can actually deeply affect your body. Environmental toxins are endocrine disruptors. What I mean is it plays a big role in how our bodies function, right? And so multiple environmental toxins can have things called xenoestrogens. And what they are man-made chemicals that display estrogen-like qualities at the cell receptor level. This can impede signaling and creation of the luteinizing hormone. The luteinizing hormone is actually what stops, it impairs the ovaries and testes from producing testosterone. They can usually be found in pesticides, personal care products, and plastics. Okay. Bottom line, we want to use natural where we can, using glass Tupperware when heating things up, eating well. Xenoestrogens are not something you really want in your body. Excess estrogen or excess estrogen-like things can look like hormone imbalance when it could just be an environmental imbalance. Okay. So you're never going to remove them all from your life. I'm sorry to tell you, you're just never going to remove it all. But what you can do is look at things like removing BPA, removing as much plastic for your food as possible. You can look at canned foods. You want to look at the liner, make sure that it is estrogen free. So I know like Eden Foods is a good one. You want to avoid triclosan, which is found very frequently in antibacterial stuff. You also want to avoid phthalates, which are commonly found in your shampoos, your conditioners. Try and find SLS free if you can, sulfate free. And when it comes to phthalates, this is usually found in like fragrance products. So on the ingredient list, it's often written as fragrance, perfume, or parfum. And you want to avoid those as much as possible. The last one is make sure that your cosmetics don't have lead and crap in them. So do look for a more natural approach if you can, like Body Shop, Lime Life, I think is one. Like there's tons of great natural things. So just look for the least crap possible. Okay. You're never going to avoid it all. Just look for the least crap possible. My favorite one out of all of that is don't buy your typical deodorant. Try and avoid like Dove or something like that. Try and aim for natural ones that don't have like high metal in them, things like that. And that can actually have a deep impact too. Because don't forget, underneath your armpit is your lymph nodes, guys. Those are some tender areas you want to take care in keeping well, right? They're a little bit more expensive. Like I know instead of like $4, they can be like $8, but you're not going to use as much. And if you actually follow what dermatologists recommend, they actually recommend to put deodorant on the night before when you go to bed. So that way it has time to work its way before you're already actively sweating and you'll sweat less. So that's a little pro tip that I learned.
There's studies about antiperspirant chemical nastiness ingredients being found in breast cancer tumors, guys. So,
so guys, overall, to put it all together, you should, number one, overall, you should consult your physician or healthcare provider to have blood work panels drawn if you suspect you have a hormone imbalance. Number two, if you've been prescribed hormone replacement therapy or synthetic medication, it's okay. You have options to try naturally and with medication. It's up to you and what your doctor feel is best for your situation. Three, even with or without medication, you should look at your lifestyle in order to help yourself balance things out as much as possible. Even if you don't have a hormone imbalance, these tips still apply to you. Number four, start moving your body appropriately with a plan. Don't go willy-nilly. Please don't go willy-nilly. It doesn't work. You shouldn't be changing up your routine every 3 workouts. Have a plan. Build on that plan. And this will allow you to identify when something is too much. Okay, if you're doing willy-nilly all the time, you won't be able to track that. Number 5 is to look at your diet and incorporate whole foods in a balanced form. 6, improve your sleep health and hygiene. 7, stop drinking alcohol and caffeine as much as possible. And 8, embrace that this is going to be a journey and it takes time. You're not going to fix yourself overnight. You didn't get here overnight. It won't be fixed overnight.
Thank you so much, Samm. Been super informative. You guys, your health is your wealth. We want to eat good, feel good, live good. And like she said, be patient. It's going to be a little bit hard to do changes. If you're not moving, you start moving, or if you're cutting things out, it might be stressful. It might be like one day you're rocking it, the next day you suck at it. Maybe you have a 2-week hiatus because something happened in your family life, like what happened to me. And that's fine. Dust yourself off, brush yourself off, get up, and go forward. You're not going to be perfect. There's no such thing as perfection. We're all just doing our best. 1% better every day is all you can allow yourself to do. Samantha is going to link later her information, like her website, her social media. You guys follow her. She's awesome. She posts some really awesome things about diet and exercise all of the time, and hormones and all that goodness. And like she said, she's a specialist. So if you guys need her, reach out to her. She is here for you. We will be back in the future with some awesome topics. And please comment what topics you want to hear from us. Subscribe to Keto Queen YYC, and you are going to get the updates when I interview specialists like Samantha. So super, super grateful that you've been here. Thank you so much for your time. And your health it's a little bit complicated. It is a little complicated. Like she said, you didn't get here overnight. So there is a few factors you guys might have to look at towards your health journey. And like we said, 1% better every day. You can do it. We're here for you. We're excited for you to feel better and live your best life. So I guess we'll just say ciao for now, and we'll be back soon.
See you later, sweethearts. Bye-bye.